Hi, this is Steve Wick, president of DriveThruRPG, and you're listening to Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
This week, Morrus, PJ, and Jessica discuss matching a story idea to the best rules system. In the news, Dungeons & Dragons is coming to virtual reality, D&D Beyond stats on what characters we made in 2023, the Rebel Moon lawsuit between Evil Genius Games and Netflix is settled, and more. Plus, a brand new sketch about a new party member who may not be who they claim. This week on Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
This week's podcast is sponsored by the Heavenly Academy of Marital Arts. Marital Arts? This is a family podcast. Even I have standards, and I'm the world's foremost evil wizard. What? Huh? Martial arts. Oh, well, that's different then. The Heavenly Academy of Martial Arts, where you can learn to kick and punch your way out of anything. Fisticuffs. I don't see what's wrong with a good fireball. Ouch.
All the tabletop role-playing news. We aim to amuse and we aim to enthuse. And Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
Hello, and welcome to Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Russ, aka Morrus, or Morrus, aka Russ, and with me this week is
PJ Coffee from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers. Russ, it's a delight to be here. Joining us also, in perhaps a slightly more delicate state than she'd like to be, is the one. It's the only. It's
me, Jessica from EM Publishing. Thank you, Peter, for that gentle introduction. I'm, in fact, a little bit hungover, but nevertheless,
yes,
the TTRPG news will not wait for anyone's hangover.
We all know that people shouting loudly is the best thing when you're hungover.
Yes, it's my favourite thing.
Yeah,
I could grab a couple of pots from downstairs and bring them up if you like.
No, it's I'll just mute you, and that'll be fine.
Anyway, let's do some RPG news, shall we?
Ooh, jolly good. Yes.
Let's do that. All right, we got a few bits and pieces. This is an interesting one. Do you remember the Rebel Moon RPG?
By Evil Genius.
Evil Genius Games was making it for Netflix, and then Netflix cancelled the contract because then there was a big old thing that happened, and then Evil Genius Games sued Netflix for breach of contract, and Netflix said that Evil Genius Games had breached confidentiality, and there was a back and forth, and then a lawsuit started happening, and so on. Yep. Well, that lawsuit has now been resolved.
Oh, that was quick. What is the resolution?
Yes, well, we don't really know. But we do still know that there is not going to be a Rebel Moon tabletop RPG.
Probably just that there's not going to be a Rebel Moon game because the critical reception of that movie has not been kind, at least in these weeks' time over.
Yeah, but even so, Evil Genius did put a lot of work and effort into making this thing, and not being able to release it. It's got to be a hit. Got to be a financial hit of some kind.
According to Evil Genius, Netflix has thanked them for their professionalism and. Reading between the lines, there's going to be a certain amount of reskinning and rewriting those RPG favourites.
and so they're going to release it as something else, perhaps. Yeah, maybe.
I'm looking forward to it.
Sci-fi setting of their own creation, will it be?
I think part of the problem was that Netflix asserted ownership of everything that they made.
That's right, so they couldn't use it, yeah.
But also, despite cancelling the contract... which presumably at that point they wouldn't have ownership of any of it because the contract would be void. It was like they used a lot of the world building material apparently that Evil Genius did in that game, or in a sort of product bible, world bible, in the film, and in plans for future films and video games and other properties. Because it's going to be a franchise apparently.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I would be.
I know there were plans. I know there were plans for it to be a franchise. Whether that remains based on the reception.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be about money. Let's see how it did in...
because it's on Netflix, they do it by how many views in the first...
Netflix doesn't share that information, though, so you never know, do you?
Views in the first week, I think. And that's all they tend to look at.
I'll tell you this. Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire was 2023. There is Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, 2024, with Cleopatra Coleman, Charlie Hunnam, and Carrie Elwes.
And that's quite soon as well. It's like March or April. It's not like a year away. It's very soon.
But that's because they've already, by the time they released the first one, they'd already probably finished filming and done everything for the second one, because on that release schedule, that would have been probably well into the editing and nearly finished by then. So
But anyway,
heard meet Star Wars. Good times.
Well, it's been resolved in some manner or other. I don't know if any settlement was paid. I don't know.
I hope People Genius got paid for
any
their
details.
Work, and rather more than
hopefully they've been paid for their work. Yeah, one would hope. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess they've got a little bit of publicity out of this. I guess
certainly gained some
maybe.
sympathy. So always good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good on them. I'm glad it's solved. I don't know whether I don't know whether they're happy or not really, and they can't really say, I guess. But it says it's been resolved amicably, so you just have to take them at their word, I guess.
We had a bit of controversy erupt quite recently.
No, that doesn't sound likely.
No,
that never happens.
I mean, what I keep saying is like drama in the TTRPG scene. No,
never.
Not fair.
Go on, tell us about the latest controversy.
Well, Pelgrane Press has released a book called something like The Ultimate Guide to Games Mastering by a chap called Justin Alexander, who I know is well known to us as a person of a sane and level temperament. In his book, he has gone through... it's basically a reprint of some parts of his blog, as far as I can make out. And in it, he's changed certain things from decaying a dungeon to Xandering a dungeon.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So the decaying is in reference to Janelle Jacays, who recently passed away, who was rightly famous for non-linear level design in dungeons, which is like why things like Quake and other things like the Caves of Thracia were and are regarded as design classics. So before I was aware of this, I read his blog post where he was talking about decaying a dungeon, and then he switched to talking about Xandering a dungeon. And, having read the blog that he wrote, right, I'm left wondering, why is it called Xandering? Is this some sort of Buffy reference that I have missed?
That's what was my first thing, and I didn't understand why.
Well, Xander is short for Alexander. And
you see, this is where Russ is ahead of the game, because I was read this blog.
Oh, that was a self-reference.
Yeah. He basically he wrote about Janelle Jacays' work, and then decided to call it Xandering. And that just left me so confused. I was so confused, I didn't realise it. Like you, Jessica, I was thinking, he's writing about Janelle Jacays' work, and then maybe there's a Xander reference that I don't know.
A little bit of history to it. So he coined the term
decaying.
Decaying.
No, he coined the term.
Oh, decaying.
Decaying
Dungeon, missed out the S. On the end of her name.
Speaking has a coffee. I can definitely understand the annoyance if someone goes around misspelling my name. People have asked me for significant sums of money and misspelt my name, which did not go over well with me, I can assure you.
Yeah, my name gets misspelled every single time. Double everything is what I tell them. Every consonant in my name, just double it, and you'll probably be safe.
If you two had a basic name like Jessica Hancock, no one would misspell it, because they're two really basic common names, and
Would you like to swap names, Jess? Would you like to
Which
be
name?
Ross Morrissey from now on?
No,
you got to have the whole thing. You can't have part of it.
Will I technically be the legal owner of EM Publishing then, if I take your name? Because your name it's registered all in that name.
And your house and your car.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! Yeah, I could be a homeowner. Do I have to keep the dogs?
Yes.
Django will adjust. It'll be fine.
Yeah. You have to have Marvin.
I wouldn't mind, but I think Django, my dog, would be really upset because he's in his grumpy man era.
Anyway, Janelle Jacays was like, this is quite annoying. It's not decaying a dungeon. It's Jacaysing a dungeon with the S in. The S has been part of my name my entire life.
Yeah.
And there's been various back and forths, and there's a blog post on dmydragons.blogspot.com, which goes into a significant amount of evidence. And I've seen some wild takes which are like, well, of course he can call it Xandering, because he popularised it, which of course makes me think naturally of Huxley's on the origin of species, and of course Bill Nye's work with Nye's law, Nye's equation, and Nye's law of motion. Apologies if you don't get the science jokes, but look it up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So basically it's kind of... So, he coined, I can't remember how long ago it was he coined the term. It was a number of years ago.
2010.
Okay, so quite a while ago. Called it decaying, not decaying.
Yes.
And obviously it was in reference to that style of dungeon design.
Non-linear design,
for which he was famous. So, as I understand it, she contacted him, Justin Alexander, and asked him to correct the spelling and say, my name is Jacays, not Jacay.
Yeah.
So I don't mind you coining the term Jacaysing the dungeon, term, but could you spell it correctly?
Yeah,
and
the flattering part is naming it after me, but could you spell my name right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And then his response was something along the lines of, going back and changing the reference would be an extraordinary amount of work, which I'm not able to do. Which kind of flummoxed a few people.
Yeah.
Could you, going forward, say it correctly in all future references?
Yeah.
Like maybe there's an argument for the web link maybe being harder to do, but like all the text in a blog post is very easy to change.
Well, he was able to change it to Xandering the dungeon, so if you can change it to Xandering the dungeon, you can change it to Jacaysing the dungeon, presumably. But
good point. Like it.
One change, adding an S is harder than changing it to Xander, I guess. I don't know. But
let me introduce you to a concept we call control find. It will change your life for us.
The replace button, yeah.
So, basically that's what appears to have happened, and then kind of doubled down on it. And then, of course, there's been a backlash, because there would be, especially because General Jacase passed away, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And people have been saying that it's kind of an erasure of her accomplishments by renaming it after himself. Yes. Partly, I think it was maybe because there's a book coming out, and I don't know.
Apparently his lawyers, he had a conversation with his lawyers, and they advised him to change the name to something that he controlled. It's very strange.
So, yeah. It's an odd thing.
I find it very bizarre.
He's always been kind of very pro-inclusivity and pro-trans and stuff.
Oh, yes.
And obviously, Janelle Jacase is, a trans, or was a trans game designer. So some of the accusations at him have been that it's kind of like anti-trans. I don't think that's what's going on there, because historically he has been very, very pro on that front. But it is an odd kind of weird thing to do.
Well, I mean, October 2016, he published Fort of the Day Dead Names, where he lays out a 6-part defence for his refusal.
Yeah.
I mean, I read bits of his blog.
That article contents, is that like pro using people's dead names, or what was the stance there?
He lays out a 6-part defence for his refusal to update the original post to include Janelle's correct name. Lots of hypotheticals and counterfactuals. I didn't go and read the original article or the web thing, as I say.
All right,
but
no, don't worry if you haven't read it. I just from the title, I was like, that's fine.
The title looked like it might upset me if I read it. I get very angry.
That's fair enough.
I didn't want to go online and shout at them.
I think the thrust was about retroactively changing references to the dead name on older posts, I think. Right. I'm not 100% sure though.
Okay.
Yes.
It's an odd hill to stand on.
Yeah. Another week, another controversy in TTRPG.
I have some non-controversial news if we'd like to talk about more fun, creativity and innovation in our industry.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, so next month in February is Zine Month.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if you're familiar. So originally, Zine Quest is something Kickstarter, the crowdfunding platform, started, and they put a tag on it, so Zine Quest tag goes on it, and it's designed to let smaller creators make tabletop role-playing games that are like zine, smaller ones. And they encourage people to flood the platform with that, so there's loads of projects, and there are loads taking place. So the one on Kickstarter is called Zine Quest, but I refer to it as Zine Month because lots of other platforms also support this, so it's not just a Kickstarter thing.
Yeah, it's spread.
So it's on like Itch and loads of places, more than I can mention. But if you look around the internet, you'll see Zine Month things. And there's loads of really cool projects coming out. There's more than I can name, but the last 2 weeks I have had a flood of press releases coming through to us at EM World about them. And I know Egg Embry's doing his best to write up the summary article, which is really difficult because there's so many great projects.
That's a big hill to climb.
There's hundreds and hundreds of them.
As it's designed to be. But I would say go around and have a look on the platform you like to buy RPGs, and you'll likely see something for Zine Month. And it's a really good way to support, independent creators. And there's always some things that are a bit weird and a bit different. And they're normally priced in a way that you can give it a try. So if it's someone new who you haven't seen their work before, or it's an idea that you're like, oh, that's a bit out there, I'm not sure about it. Usually you can get a PDF for quite a low price to just give it a try. And that's it's so great for little smaller indie creators that are starting out. It can really give them a good start.
So here's a question for folks who aren't necessarily familiar with the concept of a zine, or a zine, as I prefer to say.
A zine.
I was very confused, Russ. If we were talking about zines, and they all say, but what's this got to do with
sounds
zines?
better. It sounds better.
A zine is in magazine, anyway, I figure.
I get the logic. I still think zine sounds better.
You've heard this before, Jessica. We're just going to have to live
English,
with it.
it's not consistent.
No, it's not, because we went around the world and stole loads of other people's languages, and it's a very English thing to do.
It's free
in
dialects
British museums.
In the trench coat. Hey!
But anyway, so
what is a zine?
A zine/zine, as opposed to any other type of small RPG publication.
They're small form booklets that are usually kind of stapled together instead of glued as a type thing. And it started in the 1920s. Not for RPGs, obviously, because I went around them, but because
RPGs did not exist.
It was to distribute cheaply poetry, short stories, and things like that. If you don't have a big budget. So it was meant to make publishing more accessible. And now with Drive-Thru-RPG and print-on-demand places, printing zines, you can do that at quite a reasonable rate. So, they're usually quite, smaller kind of booklet type things. So it's not like a hardcover book or anything like that. But
I remember photocopied zines. So when photocopying became a thing, people would make a zine and then just photocopy 100 of them and then hand them out to all their friends and things like that, and that was a thing.
A friend of mine was doing that at a public, it wasn't a library, but it was somewhere like that, and it was an RPG, but it had guns and stuff in it, because it was I think it was spycraft or something like that. And the people at the place called the police to come have a look because they just saw somebody photocopying a load of schematics for guns and things like that. Right. And we're like, oh. So he had to try and explain to the police what a tabletop role-playing game was and what he was doing.
Did they not ask him first? They just
no. Well, in fairness, no, they did not. They were just like,
okay.
We're going to call the police. We're not going to confront this. We're not going to confront this arms dealer. We're going to just...
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but it was all fine, because once they found out, they were like, oh, it's fine. But that's quite a funny story about zines.
I think if you were an arms dealer, you probably wouldn't need to photocopy your stuff at the library.
I mean, I'm quite ignorant about international arms.
Well, so am I. Maybe that is traditionally how arms dealers go about their business.
I wouldn't be the person to ask. I'm not going to lie to you. But yeah. Okay. But that is my information, basically. Zine Quest is happening throughout February, Zine Month even. So go have a look and maybe spend a couple of dollars or pounds to give something new a try.
So D&D Beyond...
what are they doing now?
Released some statistics.
Okay.
They haven't done anything bad.
Okay.
They released some statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been doing this there's been a long time. It's actually been, they used to do it all the time, didn't they? And you get these graphs of things like the most popular archetypes and the most popular weapon and the most popular spells and things like that. And then it kind of stopped for the last couple of years for some reason.
Was that when it went to Hasbro?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It might be time to do that, yeah.
And the best classes, which were Fighter and Rogue. Yeah.
I do think they are the best classes. I agree. They're the ones I like to play.
Most popular classes.
They're the best.
No, I think they're the best. I think they're the best.
I like the wizard. Thank you very much.
Anyone can be wrong. Anyway. To show you, anyone can be wrong.
So what we got is, and these, to be honest, it hasn't really changed all that much since they used to do it, although apparently there were some minor changes. So the most common species.
Human,
I think you can guess what the most common one is.
Human.
We start with human.
Yes. Default setting.
Half-elf.
Yes. And half-elf isn't there until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 5.
I reckon tiefling's quite high.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so we got... So I'll give you the top 5, I won't read them all.
Okay.
Human, elf, dragonborn, tiefling, and then half-elf.
Fair enough.
So that's the top species.
Yeah.
This is all basically based on what characters people are making on D&D Beyond.
Yes.
So they can just pull the data out and just get a massive data
Yeah,
dump
that's
of
easy.
literally millions of characters. And these are all through 2023.
Yep.
So, and it kind of drops off quite a lot as well. When you've got humans, you're at 700,000.
Wow.
And then you look at something like, I mean, I guess it's because these are in supplementary books, but an Azumar or an Arakocra, they're down sort of like 60 to 80,000, like a tenth of the number
Like
that are human.
Arakocra, I'm not too surprised. They're basically banned by whole piles of GMs because
Yeah.
they've got flight, and that can be quite intimidating.
Gnome, then. Let's go gnome. If we're talking just core stuff, so I'm talking just player's handbook, the lowest one on there is gnome. That's at 100k, with humans at 700k, so
I mean,
1/7.
that's a lot of people playing gnomes.
Yeah, 100,000 people playing gnomes, yeah. Fair enough. What else have we got? We've got classes.
Fighter and rogue being the best two, of course.
Yep, they are the top two on there, followed by Barbarian, Wizard, Paladin. It's not, this one isn't quite as dramatic a drop-off, though. It's,
I don't know.
Until you get to the Artificer, which is obviously not in the player's handbook.
Oh, that's why.
It's a more shallow slope.
Yeah.
I'm also a bit intimidated by playing that. We just started a D&D campaign, and a friend of mine's playing that, and it seems like there's a lot to manage and do when you're new to it. It's a new...
The Artificer?
Yeah. I'm not playing it. I'm even me just looking over, I'm like, oh, it feels like you have a lot of things to deal with there. So, but yeah.
Which book is it in? Is it Eberron?
Yes.
I can't remember which book
Yes.
it's in.
Maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. We're in an
it's an
Eberron
Eberron,
campaign,
yeah.
so that makes sense as to why.
yeah.
I think that's why they made it. They're like, well, while we're here, let's do the thing.
Yeah.
Whilst in Eberron, do what the Eberronians do.
Which is
Exactly.
interesting because Daryl, who wrote this column, contrasted this information with the stats from Baldur's Gate 3,
Oh,
just out of interest.
nice. Good
That
thinking,
is,
Daryl.
yeah.
So,
That's clever.
for species,
Mm-hmm.
the top species was half-elf, rather than
Yeah,
human.
that's because they have the prettier face options, I think. Like when you're
Okay,
customizing your character.
Look, Baldur's Gate 3 is a dating sim. Jessica's convinced
Yes.
me of this, and I see no
Absolutely.
reason to change my mind on the matter.
Well, no. Baldur's Gate is many things to many people, and it can be a dating sim if you want it to be.
If you wanted to
I'm
be.
choosing to play it that way, but other people, go around and fight things. It's your choice.
I'm just like randomly browsing through social media, and there are women infusing about the fact that they can have like several queer boyfriends. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I had not considered that angle. But
Yeah.
I am pleased that you have found something else to enjoy about the game.
Yes. And you can have several queer girlfriends as well.
Marvellous.
True,
It's
true.
great.
Yes.
Anyway,
Moving on.
what was the contrasting in the column?
So the contrast with the classes.
Mm-hmm.
So on D&D Beyond, it's Fighter, Rogue, Barbarian, Wizard, Paladin, top 5. On Baldur's Gate 3, Paladin, Sorcerer, Warlock, Rogue, Bard. Fighter doesn't even get a look in.
No, fair enough.
Maybe that's because... No, actually, no, I don't have a reason for that.
That's exciting.
Interesting. I guess because D&D Beyond is people playing TTRPGs, whereas obviously Baldur's Gate is the wider population of people playing digital video games. It's not just TTRPG players, it's also people that have never played TTRPGs. So.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, the final stat we got is names.
Oh,
The
okay.
most popular name still hasn't changed in all these years.
Oh, I've just seen it, so I won't guess what it is if we're doing that game.
Most popular
Do you
name.
wanna guess?
Was it Steve?
It's not far
It's
off.
it's of that genre of name.
Oh, Bob.
Yes.
Bob, correct. The most popular name is Bob. Basically, the most commonly created character on D&D Beyond is Bob, the human fighter.
Nice. I'm just getting such looks from these two. What? Of course they're called Bob. What else would you call your NPCs? Bob.
Well, what on this is just people trying out builds,
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
isn't it? And if you're just going to name it something, Bob, like, okay, it's...
Bob the Builder for your build.
I don't think all of these characters are played. A lot of people just like making builds, especially making 20th level builds to plan the advancement and stuff. So a lot of people
That's
do that.
true.
And then you just write Bob in because it's easy, I guess. Yeah, that is the D&D Beyond stats.
Because there's a decline.
But not much change.
A decline in the name for Bruno.
Oh well, poor
Because
Bruno.
we don't talk about Bruno.
About Bruno.
Oh,
That's what I'm... I've got some exciting news for those of you who are fond of SCP, Secure, Contain, Protect.
I am not part of that, thankfully, but I know of it.
Yes. I mean, it is pretty much some high-grade nightmare fuel to pour into your brain, but also quite interesting. So, pros and cons. Graham Barber, a.k.a. POC Gamer, a.k.a. Panzerline, has produced a little rules light game for that. So I'm pretty interested. It's like $5.99 on itch.io. It's called The Foundation. And you are trying to do SCP operative things to prevent SCP entities from doing terrible, terrible things to people.
I would not want that job.
I think it's actually a really good one for a rules light system because a lot of the SCP abilities, I'd be like, I don't even know how to begin putting this into a into a game. They are wildly various, wildly interesting, and generally horrible, which is quite cool. I've just read there is no anti-memetics division, like within the past month or so. That's by QNTM, which I will say is Quantum. And that is a brilliant book. Love it to pieces. So I'm like looking at this going, what about that? Anyway.
So just for some context, what is SCP?
Secure, Contain, Protect. It's a big Wikipedia page that is full of Argora rules that have never existed.
Oh, okay.
Kind of reminds me of the laundry system a bit, in a sense. I know it's not the same, but they find weird, esoteric, wibbly anomalies in the world, monsters and creatures, and try and contain them.
Yeah, like I would say the laundry setting rather than the system, but yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes, that's what I meant. Not because the system in this is Breathless system, which I've not seen actually. Do you know what? That has piqued my interest. I might purchase this live on the show.
Oh, exciting!
It's only
drama.
It's only $5.99.
How exciting!
It is $6. But yeah, I quite liked his rules on experience for D&D, so that was quite good. Can definitely recommend it. Writes an insane blog as well. Okay. Yes. Anyway, that's why I saw that. I thought people would want to know. You get options to play the researcher, field agent, containment specialist, security officer, the tactical operative, and the D class, which has good luck next to it. I don't know what these things are. Cool. But I'm excited for them.
Good. We've got some D&D virtual reality news.
Really?
So there's a video game company called Resolution Games. They're Swedish. And they have announced a deal with Hasbro and Wizard of the Coast. They're going to be creating a virtual reality D&D game. We don't know anything else about it other than the fact that they're doing that. There are no details at all, no release date, anything like that. But that is a thing that a Swedish game company is doing, making a virtual reality D&D game. I don't know if you've ever heard of a game called Demeo, Demeo, but that is a game that they made, if you're familiar with it. I've never heard of it.
I haven't.
But they're like dungeon crawl fantasy games, apparently.
Cool. Well,
yeah,
I'm intrigued to see what they do.
Yeah, because there are a fair few games on VR, but I don't think there's anything like that I would class as Dungeons and Dragons, which is, now I say this out loud, a bit of a curious concept. There's definitely stuff which is like swords and sorcery, like Vanishing Realms, which I absolutely love. That is full on. You're going hand over hand across ropes to get to the treasure. You hold your torch in one hand, you're fighting a skeleton with your sword in the other. That's like very peak, like swords and sorcery for me. There are some quite interesting
Elder Scrolls. Is there an Elder Scrolls VR game as well?
Oh yeah, you've got Skyrim.
Skyrim.
If that's what you're about. Yeah. I don't know. I definitely don't like Skyrim. Again, that doesn't feel like D&D to me.
No, it's not. It does not D&D, but it's like you say, sword and sorcery type thing. Yeah.
Well, this is specifically D&D, so
yes,
you'll presumably have beholders and other mind flayers and other things that are D&D specific.
Owlbears, bear owls.
Owlbears and bear owls, that sort of thing.
Terrifying.
One would expect. But yeah, I don't know anything else about it. There are social media accounts for them, so you can go and sort of like keep an eye on those and see if any more information is forthcoming. But at the moment, that's basically all we know. There is one coming at some point.
Okay.
But like VR for me, it's still too much hassle.
Yeah.
It's still too fiddly. It's not quite at the ease of use level yet. But it's getting better than it was. I remember like 5 years ago, and now it's much better.
Yeah, I mean, like, if Google had managed to make Google Glasses, which didn't make everyone extremely angry and annoyed about their privacy being constantly violated, then we'd probably just be able to play them with, like, a hook into whatever model we have.
Also, the tech wasn't ready then either, was it? I mean, it's much closer to being now. But, I mean, it's got to get to the point where it's you just put on a pair of glasses and you're there, rather than having to plug things in and log into things. And
I mean, I'm told
put headsets on and charge them. And
I'm told there's smart Ray-Bans which will do projections.
Yeah, I've got a pair.
Right,
I've got a pair, yeah.
Oh,
I found them very gimmicky.
Yes.
It's like for a couple of days, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is great." I'm walking around taking pictures of stuff and uploading it to Facebook and all this sort of stuff. And then after a couple of days, I realised I haven't done it in like ages, and the gimmick has worn off. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, they work. They're fine.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Anyway, that's that. Anyway, that's D&D VR news for those interested in such things. There's other D&D news. Other bits of D&D news.
Tell us.
Is that?
Mike Mills.
Oh, yes. Recently fired.
Mike Mills, laid off. Mike Mills was one of the senior D&D game designers.
Yeah.
Got moved over to Magic the Gathering like 2 or 3 years ago, I think. Maybe longer. I can't remember when. And recently got laid off and has now basically hasn't been seen on Twitter since. Partly because there was a controversy I don't really want to get into, like 4 years ago.
Well, and based off 10 years ago with the original Dungeons and Dragons as well, but yeah.
But it's resurfaced. It's creating his own D&D stuff on a Patreon. Popped up on EN World to talk about redesigning challenge rating and encounter design for D&D. Basically saying that I think it was kind of a holdover from earlier editions, and it was like really kind of it was good enough at the time, but it isn't really great.
Sorry.
And apparently the word it did at Wizards the idea of completely redesigning the whole concept of it did arise in the days of 5e, but they decided against it because it was too much of a departure from previous editions. But he's kind of designed his own, which he stuck on GitHub, his own version, his own sort of encounter building CI type thing. And he started a Patreon for other design work, and he's promised various bits and pieces, including psionics rules and things like that is going to be there. I haven't actually signed up for it, so I haven't seen the stuff on there, but I know people have.
That is certainly an ambitious set of tasks to take on. But, yeah, he's a senior designer with lots of experience, so maybe it will be within his capabilities.
Yeah. I guess, once you're no longer working at Wizards, you've got...
got free time on your hands.
Yeah. I mean, he's, Well, I mean, he says that, like, anything that he worked on while at Wizards belongs to them, so he can't, even stuff that he worked on himself,
of course,
their contractor, so it belongs to them, so he can't release anything that he's worked on previously, even if he didn't make Light of Day into a book or anything. But he can do new stuff.
Yes.
But yeah.
I mean, psionics is extremely conceptually challenging to make work well inside the D&D framework as it currently stands.
No, we're doing it in Void Runner's Codex. Fingers crossed. People will like it.
Yes. Fingers crossed.
We shall see.
Yes.
I haven't gotten to editing that chapter yet. I'm dreading it. But we'll get there eventually. I'm currently working on the classes.
Exciting.
I finished editing the heritages and handed them off to layout.
Amazing.
Last week.
Good job.
And I'm now on the classes, which is harder than heritages.
Oh.
Because classes are much bigger than heritages.
Yeah.
But fortunately, there's less of them as well. There's only 5 of them rather than the 13 heritages we got or whatever it is. Anyway, so Mike Mills has resurfaced other D&D stuff. WizKids has announced some 50th anniversary Icons of the Realms miniatures.
Oh, nice.
So we've got a big Drider, we've got some Drow, we've got a dragon. Obviously, we've got a dragon. Why wouldn't we have a dragon? A red dragon.
Makes sense.
Oh, another red dragon. Huh, exciting.
Yeah. It's a red dragon wormling.
Oh, okay.
And it says it's on a 1-to-1 scale.
So
How big is a wormling?
It's the size of a horse.
It's 2.5 feet tall.
That's not...
Depends on how big you think a wormling is, I guess.
The wormlings are size large, so that is much bigger than a big dog and is definitely horse-sized. So I disagree. Like,
okay.
1 to 10, maybe? 20 feet? Would that be
cute.
more huge? That's good.
It's sitting like a good boy waiting for a treat. That's what that sit is.
It's $650. It's not cheap.
I will not be buying that.
Yeah.
It's not cheap at all. But other than that, there's 50 miniatures in this set in total. In both their original first edition incarnations and their current 5th edition incarnations. So you get versions of them.
Is what?
To compare, which is interesting.
Does one half look slightly melted? Sorry.
What? Wow.
Sorry. I'm sure they're absolutely lovely to look at.
That's I mean,
I can't look at that.
There's going to be
no mind.
a lot of stuff coming out this year that for the 50th anniversary, isn't there? There's going to be tons and tons of it.
Yeah.
As well as the core rulebooks. So I think this is going to be like every week. We'll probably be reporting on something.
Yeah.
I imagine going forward.
Yeah. A chance more you could whack a copy of the picture into the chat.
Do a what? Sorry.
Of the dragon.
Copy of the picture. Yes, because it's
Yeah.
behind
Could you link to the article?
It's a draft in the news digest. So, okay, there we go.
Yes, it is. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's linked there. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, these are lovely. Do they come coloured? Do we think pre-painted? Oh goodness.
We love a pre-painted miniature on the show.
I love pre-painted miniatures. They should all be pre-painted.
They are randomly assorted, so does that mean you get a bag and it's just Lucky Dip?
Yeah, they're booster packs.
I mean, these are very high quality in terms of the paintwork. This is...
Oh, yeah, they're very nice, yeah.
Like $25, $30? That is extremely cheap.
How much do you get in each one?
1 large miniature and 3 medium or small. Okay. So 4.
Yeah.
4, but one of them is large, yeah. Okay.
But I mean, like, what's that, at $25, I mean, you're looking at, like, about $6 per mini, and the quality of the paintwork on this is not low. That is...
Yeah, I don't like the Lucky Dip, like, see what you get pack thing, because if I want a particular miniature, I want a particular miniature. Like...
Absolutely.
I don't know, but maybe that's because I'm not into collecting them. So I know some people will just have a load and they're like, do you know what? I just have a big collection and I know I'll use some...
Random collectible things is big money, though. It's,
but more just people that have a whole range of stuff and they're like, at some point, I'll use some of them because I just use miniatures in my games a lot, but because I don't...
Look at collectible card games as well. It's the same theory, isn't it?
It's all booster packs.
You know?
Oh, yeah. I remember those days of Magic the Gathering.
Do you know that Planescape is now part of the Forgotten Realms?
What?
I did hear that.
Planescape is now part of the Forgotten Realms. So, it has been integrated into the Forgotten Realms via the Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League.
Okay.
You look shocked,
yes, basically.
Okay.
All right. Tell me more about this, because I'm sort of interested in the same way that I find it interesting when an algorithm on social media says, hey, look at this truck that's parked across this railway line. Ooh, look, the barriers are coming down. We wonder what happens next. So please tell on.
I mean, I don't know much about Adventurers League. I got to be.
I've been out of it
honest,
for oh goodness, about 5 years now at this point.
Yeah,
but yeah, all right. Tell me more.
Yeah. So basically, they've incorporated the Planescape campaign into the Adventurers League Forgotten Realms campaign.
Right. Because I know they had Eberron has a campaign, but that was like a separate. It's off to the side. You can't have the same characters. So this is actual main line. All right. Okay.
I mean, I look at this and I don't necessarily understand. I could read it out to you and you probably understand what it meant, which is quite long, but I don't really necessarily understand what it means. But like characters can create characters, players can create characters specifically for the Planescape campaign to participate in the Turn of Fortune's Wheel adventure. But they can also choose to use existing Forgotten Realms characters for that storyline.
That's quite big, yeah.
And then beyond Turn of the Fortune's Wheel, and that was the Planescape adventure, wasn't it, that came out? Yeah. They had the option to engage Planescape characters in other Forgotten Realms adventures. So you can play Turn of the Fortune's Wheel with Planescape characters, and then you can carry on playing them in Forgotten Realms adventures.
I mean, that is very much full integration you're describing, yeah. Wow.
DMs are permitted to run Planescape Dungeon Craft adventures alongside the Turn of Fortune's wheel sessions. I don't know what that means.
Well, Dungeon Crafts, I guess, is somebody else who writes them?
I don't know.
That's...
But yeah, I don't know what to say.
I mean, Planescape and Forgotten Realms are now canonically connected as per Wizards. So... Okay.
I don't know enough about it to have an opinion about it because I've not done Adventurers League. Do you have an opinion you'd like to share on it, Peter, as probably the person that understands it the best here?
In terms of it being Adventurers League, it's not hugely that relevant to most people's lives. Because Adventurers League, as you know, is sort of an organised play activity.
Yeah.
I imagine, but I mean, it is official stuff, so I'll be interested to see what makes it into the hardbacks. I mean, they're definitely leaning into this multiverse concept quite hard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, isn't everybody?
Yeah. Goodness.
I was kind of getting the impression that multiverses are starting to become less popular now. People are getting pretty tired of them.
I mean, has a device to lower the dramatic stakes. They're excellent, but Well, yeah, because it doesn't matter what happens, because in a parallel universe it didn't happen. So it doesn't matter if a character dies because Tony Stark's alive just over there, you know? That sort of thing. Yeah, basically. It's just, wow, okay. Interesting stuff. But yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I don't particularly have strong views on Planescape. But yeah, I sort of assumed that Sigil? That's how you say it, was connected.
Sigil,
was connected to,
I thought it was Sigeli, but that's fine.
Sorry?
I thought it was Sigeli.
I thought it was Sigil, but apparently I'm pronouncing it wrong.
I was being facetious.
It's a different word, but it's not the same as Sigil. Yeah.
Oh well, that place. But yeah.
As language is wont to do.
Pronounced differently, yeah.
Pronounced differently. Pronunciated in a differentiated manner.
Indeed.
Anyway, we should move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else we got going on?
I think we're coming to the end of the news, actually. Unless either of you got some more news.
Oh,
no, I don't have any more news, actually.
Well, I'm almost finished, literally, just dotting I's, crossing T's, trying to fit 65 pages into a 64-page space for my latest book. But yeah, it's working, so that's quite good. That'll be out soon. That was the Elysians, and now I've got my next book planned, which will provisional title of Banners, Bullets, and Bravery, which will be
Banners,
Bullets, and Bravery. Yes.
Cool, that's a tongue twister. Banners, Blitz, and Bravery.
Oh my!
Trying to say it 3 times
Is
really
the
fast.
tagline
Banners, Blitz.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tempt me, Jessica. Don't tempt me.
Oh, I'd love that.
That would be a different book. But
I'll do a voiceover promoting it for you if you want. Do my Beth Dorothy voice. My transatlantic... I can't do it now, but I'll work on a transatlantic accent when I'm not hungover.
Well, I do declare that.
Yeah, I can do one of those. I just need to get into the moment of it.
It's just things like, how Banners and Bravery being like a sort of like a morale system, because I'm also a bit annoyed about monsters fighting to the death, when it's like, well, they shouldn't run away straight away, but maybe they should think about it.
At some point, your self-preservation instinct kicks in.
Yeah. And it's like, you can mess around with it, but yeah. And also, I guess it's really going to be quite a bit of that. Throw some archetypes in, potentially, depending upon that sort of thing. And also quite a few monsters, because I think Kobolds with Revolvers sounds like the best idea.
Oh, yeah, they would definitely have some.
Yeah. Kobolds with Revolvers are running down the stairs. Kobolds.
Or sawn-off shotguns and things like that, very much. I think they very much, tinkered with them so that they're really good, but may explode in their hands. But, yeah.
It's really interesting when Void Runners Codex comes out and we had them running around with laser guns as well. Could be fun.
Yeah. But that doesn't sound like my problem. That sounds...
That could be if you find yourself in a game.
It doesn't sound like anybody's problem. It's not a problem at all. It's a wonderful opportunity, is what it is.
It's a player-facing problem, as I like to describe it. Whereas I'm here to help support narrators.
Yeah, but you could be the kobold with the laser gun, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm entirely okay with that.
That's what I say to myself.
Anyway.
Every week. You could be the kobold with the laser gun.
News Rooney is done.
Yes.
News is done.
Yeah. Welcome welcome to this little gathering. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, when I saw the advertisement, I made my way here as fast as I could.
Yes, adventurer wanted. It came at just the right time.
Good. Now then, before I tell you about the quest...
Oh, I do love a good quest.
I'm hoping for a deep, dark dungeon.
Or an old, haunted castle.
Right. But before that, shall we do some introductions? Get to know each other a bit.
I suppose that makes sense if we're going to be boon companions, trusting each other with our very lives, sharing the hardships and glories of a life of adventure.
Yes, let's share our deepest personal secrets and our bitterest regrets.
No, maybe a bit too far.
Yes. Let's just stick to names and a quick summary of our skill sets for now. Shall I start?
Oh, very well, brave fighter, you begin.
How did you know I was a fighter?
Chainmail, sword, shield, D10 hit dice. It's pretty obvious.
Oh, yes, of course. Well then, my name is Joriel, and I am, as you have correctly surmised, a fighter. I've been adventuring for over a decade and undertaken nearly a dozen quests. I specialise in monster slaying and have 6 bear owl kills to my name.
Most impressive. A worthy ally. So I'm Kalen, and I'm, an opportunist and a careful infiltrator.
You are a rogue.
Yes, I suppose I am. I prefer the word scoundrel. Has a bit more of a romantic flair to it.
Rogue, scoundrel. Let's call a spade a spade. You're a thief, basically.
Well, I never. How dare you?
You are kidding right now, right?
Yeah, you got me. I'm a thief, and a darn good one at that. I hold the official Mages, Monsters and Milestones record for the most safes cracked in a 24-hour period.
Which is how many?
3.
Not quite as impressive as the title led me to believe.
Cracking safes is hard, I'll have you know. Anyway, I also retrieved the Lesser Gem of Affirmation, the Token of Achievable Goals, and the Leg of Vecna.
A most excellent resume. I see this quest will be in good hands.
And finally, what about you, my friend? I must admit, I have had trouble guessing at your role. You show no clues. I am intrigued.
Very well, my new companions. I am honoured to be in your company, a sturdy fighter and a cunning rogue.
Scoundrel.
Verily. And as for myself, I, dear fellows, am...
Yes?
A Dalek.
Sorry, what?
I am a Dalek.
My apologies. I must be hearing things. For a moment I thought you said you were a Dalek.
That is correct. I am a Dalek.
But you can't be a Dalek.
Why can I not be a Dalek?
Well, you don't look like a Dalek.
Rude.
And you don't sound like a Dalek.
You haven't used the word exterminate once.
I have a cold.
But you don't act like a Dalek.
Act like a Dalek? What do you mean? How does a Dalek act?
Well, how many people have you exterminated so far today?
Well, none as of yet, but it is only lunchtime.
It's 3 in the afternoon.
I am a late sleeper.
Look, Daleks are deadly tyrannical mutants housed in mechanical casings, bent on the destruction of all life in the universe.
Yeah, they're ruthless, emotionless, and relentless in their quest for dominance.
Right, yes, that is I.
But...
But what?
No offence, I kind of thought you were like a baker or something.
A baker?
Well, you're not especially, you know...
I am not especially what?
Dalek-y.
Yes, you're not especially Dalek-y.
I never claimed I was the Dalekiest Dalek who ever,
Daleked?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But nevertheless, I am a Dalek.
Fine. You are a Dalek. So, what brings a living embodiment of terror with an insatiable thirst for annihilation to a little quest like this?
I fancied a change.
A change from...
Well, from exterminating, really.
A Dalek who wants a change from exterminating.
Well, yes, it's getting a little old. Every day it's, what shall we do today? And somebody says, let's go and exterminate some people. And we all go, yes, what a great idea. And off we go.
Well, I mean, it is what they, you are known for.
It is kind of a catchphrase.
Exactly. It's all exterminate this and exterminate that. So I thought I would try something a little different.
You're joking, right?
Yes, of course I am.
Exterminate!
Just wait until I tell the others about this.
Malak the Maleficent here. If, like me, you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing on Patreon for exclusive bonus content every week and the warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing you are helping to keep the show going. Subscribe at patreon.com/Morrus. There, I said it. Can you stop staring at me like that now? The things I do. All right. Don't forget, patreon.com/Morrus. Can I go now?
So, this week's Top of the Week, I had an idea, inspired by me listening to the Barbie movie soundtrack a lot, which is, I was thinking about the Barbie movie, as I do most days. That is my Roman Empire.
When you're not speaking about Baldur's Gate 3, of course.
And I was thinking if one were to make a TTRPG of the Barbie movie and try and tell like that sort of story in that world, what rule system would you use for that? And I have not got an idea for that. So I wanted to bring it to the table and thought we could talk about different ideas for stories that we have or ones that exist or don't exist yet, and rule systems that will go well with that. Because I think it's interesting to talk about the difference between rule systems and story, RPGs and the roles that they play.
Well, I have a question and an answer.
Okay, take it away.
So the question is, have you ever considered a big old Barbie Baldur's Gate 3 mix-up?
Barbie's Gate 3.
What do you mean?
Interesting.
Like, what's...
A big mash of the two. Barbie in Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, yeah, one of my characters is pretty much like a Barbie character, yeah.
Okay. And the
I've also made a bard called Taylor Swift, so...
Right, okay, fair enough.
I'm having a great time.
Fair enough. And a system for Barbie, I would go with Dread, the classic Jenga-based horror game.
Why?
Because it's literally the most opposite to Barbie I can think of.
Interesting.
No. I don't know what I'd go. You have to go with something light, obviously.
I'm thinking rules like narrative driven.
I'm almost... This sounds like... This sounds really bad because I'm going to say one of my own games, Awfully Cheerful, sounds really appropriate for it.
Awfully Cheerful Engine.
The Awfully Cheerful Engine. Just light and silly.
If you wanted it to be... Yeah. Well, I was thinking I wanted players to have the opportunity to have an existential crisis.
Right, okay.
That was also... I don't know, Peter, do you have any thoughts?
Probably not. I don't think existential crises exist in Awfully Cheerful Engine.
Well, so there's a chap called Gregor Hutton who has done 316 Carnage Amongst the Stars, but I believe they also did the Best Friends role-playing game.
Okay, tell me more.
Now, I don't know if this would properly capture the spirit of the movie per se, because Best Friends is more about a group of women who are all best friends, but they all secretly hate each other.
That's not very Barbie.
No, yeah. I mean, but to be fair, I played it in a Scooby-Doo hack, and due to a slight misunderstanding of the rules, we all really supported each other.
That's
I'm
nice.
not quite sure how that came, but it was like such a really lovely, positive experience.
Yeah.
So, like, if you, like, it was just, I've only played it once at a convention, but it was like just a really random chance. I was like, I don't know, not sure I like the theme, but yeah, why not? Best friends. And then we were all best friends, and I had a really lovely time. So I think that could be quite a good way to get at least the start aspects of the movie, and maybe with the moral peril, the rest of it.
I'm surprised there isn't one.
A Barbie RPG?
TTRPG, yeah.
Have we searched for this? Because that feels like...
I just did a Google search. No, there isn't.
Oh, okay.
There's lots of people discussing what would I use for Barbie and things like that, but no,
well, I
there isn't
think because it's such a big branded license thing.
So that's Mattel.
It's Mattel.
Is that correct?
You are correct.
Yeah, Mattel. And so Hasbro's rival. So... Because initially I immediately thought, well, why hasn't Hasbro done it through one of their licenses like Renegade Nesta? It's not Hasbro, is it? It's Mattel.
Also,
Mattel, do they have any RPGs? Is it just not a thing that
do
they're
Transformers
aware
have
of?
any RPGs?
No, Mattel. Transformers are Hasbro.
Who does Mattel do?
Barbie.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I mean, currently there is Perils and Princesses, which is
Oh yeah,
a system you could
I
use.
have them on.
Heard of it.
I have them on Not
I mean-
D&D. If people would care to learn more, and listen to that.
yeah,
But yeah, that
What
is
did you make of that?
more Disney.
Princesses.
Yeah, like, and that's very inspired by like Disney princesses, like then like that genre of things. Then I guess you could, but I was wondering, and only because I'm running 10 Candles this weekend. I was wondering if you play it in a 10 Candle style way, where like the candles are like a veil between the real world and Barbie Land. But I don't know. I haven't fully developed it. But anyway, I thought that was just interesting for systems. I don't know if you... Another game that I think would be a really good is, do you know This War of Mine? I'll reference... Where's the
Not
game?
played it, but yes.
I've heard of it, but again,
So
not
people
familiar.
aren't familiar. So it is it's a fictional setting, so it's not in a real world, but it's basically...
World War One?
It's in a fictional
okay.
country, but it's got references that you would know. But it's basically you are civilians in living in a war zone. So like many parts of the world people are currently. But yeah, and you are just a civilian trying to survive, not be bombed, and just have enough food and just get by living in this war zone. So it's a very sad game. And the board game, it was originally a digital game, which is very fun. Fun's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like, I enjoy playing it. I hyper-fixated on that game last year a bit. And there's also a board game of it, which I really love. And the board game is very story-driven, because when you explore things in the world, it's kind of has this environmental storytelling element. And also the characters you play have different character arcs and things that they go through. And also, depending what happens in the game, they get different endings in the board game as well. Different things happen to them as a result of what's happened in your game. And also they have different mechanical effects that are based upon their personality and things. So I thought this feels like a storytelling thing. And I was trying to think of systems that would support that game. And that it's quite, obviously, like, it's a very narrative, quite heavy subject, quite dark tone sort of thing. Very different from Barbie, but those are two of my interests, the spectrum. And yeah, I was thinking about what could be like that. And one thing I remember, I know there is a TTRPG about child soldiers based on the Warsaw Uprising. But I don't know if that would be like a good system for it.
I was thinking why there isn't one.
Grey Ranks is the TTRPG I'm thinking of. But anyway.
Okay.
I was thinking about why there isn't one. So I looked at what Mattel also does.
Oh, we're going back to Barbie, okay.
And they do Masters of the Universe. That's them.
Oh, the He-Man
and
RPG.
Masters of the Universe, yeah, you would assume would be a no-brainer.
Or the She-Ra. Oh.
But there isn't one.
Really?
So I'm guessing Mattel just isn't really, like, RPGs just aren't on their radar is why there's no Barbie
Should we
one.
approach them?
I bet if Barbie was a Hasbro thing, I bet there'd be one.
And My Little Pony is Hasbro as well.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
'Cause I
There's a
know,
My Little Pony RPG, yeah.
Pony Finder, the official Princesses of Equestria, whatever it's called.
Tales of Equestria.
Tales of Equestria, that's it. Not Princesses. And of course, Don't Rest Your Hooves, which is a horror version hack. What?
I know, I every time I hear more about it, I'm happy.
You're compelled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. Oh, wow. So, interesting.
Yeah. So there's big scope there. All of Mattel stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got other stuff that I don't really know that well. They've got Barbie, Hot Wheels, Fisher Price, American Girl, Thomas and Friends, as in Thomas the Tank Engine.
I think so.
What's Thomas and Friends? No. I
That
don't know what Thomas and Friends
be
is.
right. Thomas and Friends. I mean, maybe.
Uno,
Classic card game.
Master of the Universe, Monster High. That sounds like something that would be, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like something that would be RPG
Yeah.
Yeah. That.
fodder.
I think you could probably do some maybe Visigoths and Morgoths, but yeah, Thomas and Friends is Thomas the Tank Engine.
They own that.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And Mega, whatever that is. So, yeah, it's just not on their radar, I guess.
So we have to think of a Barbie tabletop RPG and approach them and be like, please, can we make this?
Okay. So
you want to approach a massive
What about
megacorp.
Simply Six?
It's not that massively different. sort
to
of
awfully cheerful engine.
scope-wise to awfully cheerful. It's less cheerful, I suppose, but it's about equally simple.
I will say I've just looked up Mega. It's basically not Lego. It's big kid-friendly Lego.
Building
sort
blocks.
Of things. Lego that's harder for your child to swallow is probably
that
the
could be
best selling line.
a big brand asset.
Yeah.
Or harder for your dog to swallow would be nice. Yeah.
I met your dogs, Russ. Anything that's not bigger than their heads, I wouldn't like to put on that list.
Django started eating soil recently.
They certainly make their way through things bigger than their heads as well. It just takes them longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, so that would be
harder. Yes.
So that would be Mattel and the Barbie movie.
Yes.
Segue us back into this war of mine, different vibes. I know there's the Grey Ranks RPG, which is you play child soldiers during the Warsaw Uprising. So the setting feels similar, like in terms of, civilians in wartime. But I've played it and it uses like a grid system that meant to indicate the character's mental and emotional health and well-being. But the way it moved around didn't feel organic to the storytelling. I kind of felt like the grid... Things happened, the grid moved, and it's like, oh, your character's now in this place. And it didn't always make sense narratively for that to be the case. So I was thinking, this system on the surface seems like it would do well for this War of Mine system, but I don't know if I'd be leaning into that. I didn't know if you had any other systems you thought, or rule systems that would suit that sort of story.
Pretty grim.
It is, but I do like that sort of thing.
Yeah. Grim. What are the grimmest systems out there then?
Well, Grey Ranks is about child soldiers.
It's not really a type of game that I tend to investigate.
I'm not very good at running horror. I've tried with Call of Cthulhu.
Well, it's not really horror because it's.
What about that plain sailing game stuff, like A Cool and Lonely Courage and things like that? I'm not super familiar with the system, but would they be suitable? Because you've interviewed
Alex
Alex about that. Yeah, so. Would they be appropriate? Do you think?
Maybe. I'm just wondering if That is quite true, because it is about courage and sacrifice and things. That could be a good thing, actually. It's done with playing cards and things, so...
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I just think it's interesting, the relationship between system and stories, because the rule system you use does impact the stories you tell around a table. So,
especially with a lot of story games or genre emulators, you're aiming to tell a specific sort of story.
Yeah.
And because that is very, you have the scope for what you're trying to do, because for me, RPGs are about evoking emotional experiences.
Yes.
So if you've got a particular set of tropes and a particular set of emotional experiences you want to evoke, then designing for those is the best way to go about it. So I don't really know, because I don't particularly enjoy having sort of the story set in stone. I guess because I feel almost would be looking for something that would give you the feel of a tragedy, which is where, it's going to end badly, which is not an invalid thing to happen, but I don't know, it's like those are very hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially because they require you to almost, eject modern sentiments. Because your very best tragedies are basically, it's the difference between someone's strongly held beliefs and reality. So if someone very strongly believes in honour, then they will do their best to keep their honour, even if it would be expedient for them not to do so. Or, so it's that's like your classic tragedy. It's like people strongly hold beliefs despite, what they would like to do in reality. That's where you sort of derive the tragic elements from. So if you're trying to but that's very hard to do in a modern setting, except maybe potentially with, say, hubris, like an unjustified pride in yourself and in your own abilities. So I can describe it, but I cannot think of anything that would fit the bill to let us recreate this feeling.
Well, in this War of Mine, you have that thing, like you're saying, like if you get people today whose honour and doing the right thing is important to them, And sometimes when you're in a very desperate situation trying to survive, you have to make calls that are really difficult. It's like, we have no food back at the house. I know the house down the road has some food and they won't share it with us. Do I go in and just steal it and take it by force?
Yeah. Like a moral dilemma.
Yeah, like what? So the game is kind of full of those. So I think you can have those sort of tragedy moments in it,
Or to put it another way, say you found some food and there's enough for you. Yeah. You could take it back and share it, but then there's not enough for 6 people. Yeah. Or you could eat it yourself and then you're fed. And if you give it to everyone else, then it's not going to make a difference.
So I think there's some interesting character moments in stories like that, and it's but yeah, I was always curious about like the systems and what we do to support that style of storytelling, because I know when I want to run in and be a hero when I'm playing D&D, that style of story, D&D is great for that. Like, I'm playing a fighter, I'm going to run in, I'm going to fight off these foul beasts and save this person, and I feel great, and the system really supports me feeling that way and telling that style of story. But yeah,
I mean, to a certain extent, yes, there is some truth to that. I think where it has more attraction is the swinginess is almost a feature, not a bug. So that is why a lot of people are super keen on like nat 20s and being amazing and unbelievable, and that one's being awful.
It makes the stakes real.
I don't know if I quite understand your point there, because it's more the...
Well, what I mean is
the parody
it could all go wrong. You're not...
of the situation is fun. Like, there's a real chance of having it go all Monty Python on you because you're trying to do a thing and it's just descends into farce because something you should be good at doesn't work. And people find that funny and entertaining, and that's a positive emotion. So they enjoy it. And there's a chance where you wouldn't be able to do a thing, but you roll a nat 20 and you can do a thing. And that's like a moment of elation and excitement. So in terms of emotional experience, there is a fairly good chance you'll get like humour or tragedy or like excitement on a reliable basis, because a 1 is a chance to be buffoon and funny, and that's good fun. And a 20 is a chance for, oh wow, cool, amazing superhero moment. So in terms of a positive emotion generator, yes, like 5e is very good for that, because it is so swingy. Like, I don't honestly think, to be fair, that was designed. In fact, a lot of it was sort of designed out. So 1s don't automatically fail skill checks, but people house rule them to do it because of the positive emotions that they derive from the humour of someone, like, just putting their foot in the bucket and falling down some stairs when they're trying to do a stealth roll.
Well, bounded accuracy reduced the swinginess from previous editions, definitely. So it's probably the least swingy edition.
And all the house rules are putting it back in. They're like, no, we want it more swingy. Put it back.
Yeah. And there's other ways to look at the question. So you can go, what properties are there that you think should have a TTRPG, and what system would you use? You also look at it from what games are there that, other than D&D, have been matched perfectly with the system. That are like really, really good examples of the perfect system for that genre.
And that I have played.
I think Mothership does a really good job of that. And actually the Alien RPG as well. For building that type of tense horror where you're slowly and it slowly escalates where you're like, oh my gosh, that feeling that you get when you watch the Alien films, I feel you do get in the Alien RPG and also in Mothership. So those sci-fi horror, tense, slow build horrors.
Dread. Perfect system for
building anxiety, for the dexterity.
If you play Dread properly, it's much more effective. Because I played Dread where we're just using the Jenga, and it's not that good. But one of the key things about it that makes it extremely clever is you have to answer questions in character to build up your character sheet.
Yes, I love that.
And that process of thinking, I am my character, how do I answer this question, increases your investment, increases your immersion, and therefore you start the game with, skin in the game, as it were, which is very hard to do in a one-off. Very hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I've got a lot of time for that. That's very clever.
Okay.
It's interesting that the 3 examples we just came up with off the top of it are horror stuff, though. When you think systems match a genre, we immediately rattle off horror stuff and not a different genre.
That's true.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, because my genres, because the things I'm interested in, I'm sort of interested in, like, action-adventure, maybe spooky action-adventure, and horror. These are things that I'm like, I would like to really...
okay.
Or maybe an investigation game, but I tend to be more interested in playing those rather than running them.
Yeah.
Because it's more work. So I'm very lazy.
For me, where I went for horror first is I think because running a horror game it can be quite difficult to do because you need to set that tone right. And if you have a good system that supports you with that tone, you notice it because you're like, oh, thank goodness this is all going in the right direction because of this.
Yeah.
So when I'm running a horror game and I'm using a system that makes me feel supported as a GM, it's really great. And I know, Peter, you talked a lot about systems that make you feel supported as a GM and how important that is and other things. So I think for me, that's part of it.
Do you think there's an element maybe that with horror is kind of specific enough that when you're running a horror game, you kind of have to get that right, otherwise the game won't work?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're running, say, D&D is broad enough that even if the tone you're going for some reason you miss and you don't get it, adjacent tones are fine as well because they also work in D&D. So what you'll end up with is not necessarily the game you were planning on, but it's still a game that works. Whereas in a horror game, maybe not so much. Is that a thing, do you think?
I think so, but I know there are some GMs that do get annoyed when the table gets really silly and it becomes a Monty Python, another Monty Python thing. But yeah, Peter, sorry.
Yeah, I think really we're looking at almost a tripod because system is important to an extent. The skill of your individual games master is important to a certain extent, and the skill of your players and their investment in it. If you don't have all three legs of the tripod there, it's almost like the Table of Theodicy and God falls off the top. Sorry, to explain maybe the more familiar metaphor, it's like a good GM can probably do a lot of work to carry a system, and like the core mechanic of D&D is pretty basic and really widely applicable. So you can use that for a lot of stuff and people are happy with it, which means that they feel skilled and they feel confident about investing. So that helps. So it's like, the system is adequate. It's not good. It doesn't support you. You're dragging around a lot of rules that you're probably not going to be using, but it's adequate. And you can make it work
for a broad range of things.
It will work. It's not the best, it's not the most supportive, but it will work, and that's why people use it so much.
Yeah, it's McDonald's. It's like popular. It is fine. It's not a gourmet meal, but it's also not trash out of the bin. It's fine.
Sometimes that's what you want.
Yeah.
I kind of want a McDonald's right now.
Okay,
I wouldn't mind a McDonald's as well. You made me think about McDonald's.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Well, I made myself. I said it, didn't I? It's my fault, not yours.
You did, in fact, bring McDonald's metaphor into it. Yeah, so it's a big corporation. So I guess that's sort of the relevance of it. But yeah, but I think the things that people forget are that if you don't have a great GM, because not all GMs are great.
Yeah.
Not all great GMs are great all the time.
Some of us are learning.
Yeah. Exactly. Some people are learning.
And not all GMs are suited to their group as well. That's another thing that,
Yeah, well, that's why this table has three... That's why this stool has three legs. Because you've got to have the right group. So, but a good system can help support the GM and the group by giving you the mechanics and giving you something to refer to. So you don't have to invent it out of whole cloth and just use your personality and your individual storytelling skills. So sometimes you want the system to get out of the way, and sometimes it's good to have it to lean on, and that's going to depend upon your individual comfort with the sort of story you're telling, with your players' comfort with the sort of story you're telling, and like the whole chemistry between the two. So yeah, I feel like there's just these endless debates about, but is it the system or is it the GM? And it's like, well, yes, it's both.
It's both.
And you also have to consider the players as part of this interaction.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to rant on about it. I just get impatient with seeing the same debates over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, let's not have it then. Because, so going back to systems suited for genres, one thing I've mentioned a few times is I like, for a Star Trek game, I like a percentile system because I feel it feels right. Yeah, I mean, and it's very weird because it literally is like you could do the same thing with a D20. and just 5-step, 5% percentiles. But using an actual percentile dice for it just feels more Star Trek-y in an intangible way to me than a D20 does. And I can't necessarily put my finger on why, but it just, I don't know, it just does.
There are two things that spring to mind, okay? And one of these is just something somebody pointed out the other day, and I'm slapping my head going, oh my God, of course, I didn't even think about that before. Okay? The first part is, D100, absolutely, for anything sort of scientific. But also, if you're rolling D100, the most common way to do that is you roll 2D10, right? That is rolling 2 dice. And that means that you're going to have an effect like 2D6, where rolls in the middle are much more common.
Only if you're adding them together.
I mean, sure, but you're like looking for...
You're not adding them together, you're doing tens and units, aren't you? Tens and ones.
But,
so that's not going to be the effect.
But are you rolling a specific number, or are you attempting to roll equal to or under a number?
It depends on the system.
Sure.
Because what's Cthulhu and stuff?
It's a roll under, Most D100 are roll under. I don't think...
but you get some that you roll the D100, add your skill, and try and beat 100, for example, or things like that. That's another one. So there are different ways of doing D100.
But I haven't seen so many of those. Like, with Cthulhu specifically, it's like that increases your skill level, or if you, like the Warhammer 40k ones, I think you added a bonus to your skill level, but you're still trying to roll under. You're going to get, there's going to be a place where, you're rolling and you're more likely to succeed because your skill is at a certain place. Whereas if you're rolling, a flat D20, which is a perfectly adequate, representation, provided you're not too fussed about 6s and 7s and so forth, that will do you a 100, but that's actually a true flat swing, whereas a D100 isn't a swing.
I'm pretty sure it is. It is a flat.
I believe it has an exercise to the listener or the reader.
No, I'm sure it is. D100 is.
Yeah.
Pretty flat. I'm really sure it is.
But
you go on anydice.com and put it in and get the graph. I bet you it is.
But you're looking for numbers. Yeah, but you're going to have to add up all the stuff underneath it. It depends. If you're going for a certain number, then sure, it's a flat line. But if you're looking for numbers equal to and under that number, it's cumulative. But, you know what? Shall we move on then?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's stop talking about probability.
Yeah, I zoned out of that. You started talking about probability and maths, and I was like, this is not the place for me.
Yeah.
Add numbers up. That's how D100 works. Anyway.
Adding up numbers is difficult.
So I find different dice feel different. I think that's kind of what I was saying. Different dice feel different.
They do.
And they affect my perception of a genre and a game. In an intangible way.
And whether or not you've used dice affects the game as well. Like if you're using Jenga blocks or blocks, or if you're using tarot dice. Like I know there's not dice cards.
God,
it's going well today.
You do your best. That's important.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I have. But yeah, I know loads of games use tarot cards as well. And again, that makes a different feel to a game. Like this, the part of the tactile experience, which will suit different genres and things like that as well. So
I think it's like someone was talking us all about declarative ways of running a game. So like in Everway, I was in an Everway game and the guy, no fault of his own, was just not really understanding the system. And I didn't understand the system. This is several years later with a lot of more experience. And he was basically running a combat like it was a D&D thing, where it's drawing a card each time and having to interpret it every time. Nightmare. Whereas really, you should draw a card, and that's how the combat turns out. And it's okay. That I know that's a bit weird because we're not used to having fights like that. But it's just you draw a card.
I've never played Everway.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of campaigns, but I didn't really understand. And to be fair, right, the first one I played in was hacked, and we used dice, so not at all. Actually, I've been in a quarter of an Everway campaign, or a snippet. But yeah.
Here's a question. Would you be comfortable playing in a game where you didn't really understand how the rules were working?
That is every game I ever play, Russ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I go to conventions specifically to be engaged where I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just say you want to do something and the GM tosses you roll some dice, you don't really know why you are. And
I've been in a convention game where it's basically, it was called a Cthulhu, but it's just these are skills you are good at. These are skills you are okay at. And that's literally what it said. And I rolled the dice and was just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
I very often in any game, I'm like, okay, I want my character to do this thing. How do we mechanically do that? And usually it's something that's a bit... I do this in D&D 5e a lot, because usually the system doesn't support the thing I want to do. So the GM has to be like, okay, there's not really a rule for that, so we're going to do this. So roll this for me, and that's how we'll do it. But sometimes there is a system for doing that thing. But yeah, I don't mind as a player with any system being like, hey, I'm not sure what the rule is on this, but I want to do this. But that's why I feel pressure as a GM when I'm running a game to really know the system, because I want to be that for my players. I don't want my players to have to know all the rules. I want them to be able to say to me, hey, I'm trying to do this. And I can go, sure, you do this by... and, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that is very strange, because, like, I'm sure I recall long discussions about rule of cool. So, like, surely just make it up.
Yeah, and there are times when that's the case, but there's like, you know, it's not like a, you know, there are systems in place, and if there's a rule and a way to do it, you kind of want to lean into that. So, you know, if that's getting in the way of the thing they want to do, then sure, if there's a reason we can tweak it. But I should know what the rule is, because knowing what the rule,
at least in order to make the decision
of whether or not. You know, because if I know the rule system, then I'll know, actually, leaving this rule out will kind of break the system and make it unfair for other people. But if I know the system, I'll know that, actually, if we just do this, it's not going to cause any problems.
I reckon D&D's probably got a lot of rules that a lot of people that play it don't know are there.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Certainly I don't know they're all there. Yeah. I mean, especially in the DMG, there's probably loads of stuff in there that...
Yeah.
Less than you might think. I was just having a look at the big book of appendices the other day, and... It's got stuff about world building. It's like, maybe this was relevant in 2014, but there are much better resources out there.
Yeah.
It's got the magic items. I'm struggling. I honestly looked at the contents the other day. I was like, oh yeah, that might be useful. I think it's got something about, setting the DCs. 10, 15 and 20. I'm like, yeah, actually, no, that's fair. That is good advice. Stick with those. And you're good. Either don't ask him to roll because it's too easy, 10, 15 and 20, or don't ask him to roll, it's too difficult.
There's this really old school way of playing D&D. I have never done this, and I don't think I know anyone that has. So I don't know if it's a mythical way of playing D&D that ever existed or didn't actually exist. But it's the DM making all of the rolls behind the screen, even for the players. So the players literally don't have a rules-based interface to the game. They just say what they want to do.
Yeah.
The DM interprets the rules and makes the rolls, like in a black box. And spits out the result.
I mean, I can't say, Russ, you're describing literally how I play every computer RPG. Like,
well, that's computers do that. Yeah, in computer RPGs, but
that's specifically something I actually think I enjoy about computer RPGs. I don't want to know the numbers. I don't want to think about that. I just want to play my game and do some stuff, and I'll pick things if they sound cool. I mean, there's a lot of games where you're supposed to do builds and you're supposed to know this, that, and the other. I'm like, nah, don't want to play this game. Like, this is not relaxation for me. This is work. Literally work. Yeah. So I just want a black box. I click some buttons and pretty things happen.
So you would play in a tabletop game like that, would you? Where you literally have no idea what the rules really are. You just have to trust the fact that the person is doing something behind the screen and not just making up what they want.
Well, I mean, I try and trust in the GM, but I've had some bad experiences with GMs. Like, I recall one GM where I played a game and my character got captured, tied up, and I had to escape, and there was literally nothing I could do.
Oh.
I'm like,
why is that fun?
It was not.
Yeah.
So I made a note of that GM and their name, and I have never played in their game, and I make it a point to steer people away from them.
Fair enough. I've never seen D&D played that way, because I know a lot of people enjoy D&D for building their characters so they can do specific things. I'm playing a fighter and I've built my fighter in a certain way, so I have loads of combat maneuvers, and picking which maneuver I do in different situations tactically is part of the fun of me playing that character. So I'm not sure I would enjoy playing it that way. Like, you know, I joke around, I don't know the rules to any system I'm in. Joke, also true. But like, even I enjoy running my character.
Yeah. I mean, that's really that's really sort of a question of agency.
Yeah, but yes, that's a really good point. I think it boils down to agency. I know I'm not playing this character in the most optimal way, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. I think there's systems which give you more agency, and there's systems which take it away. Like for horror systems, I think the good horror systems we described are things like Dread, where it's like you have very little agency. You are just basically hoping for the best.
Well, 10 Candles does something very interesting with agency as well. I'm sorry, I'm going on about a lot because I'm running it tomorrow, so I've been rereading it. But you start with the players have all the narrative control, because you have all the dice when all the candles are lit, and the game master doesn't have any dice at the beginning. But as the game goes on, for each candle that blows out, the game master steals one of the players' kind of dice in their pool, as it were. And so it doesn't mean that they win or lose. It means that the GM has narrative control over what happens. And so slowly as the game goes on, there's this slow thing where the agency and what's happening and the description of what's happening in the world goes from the players to the game master.
Yeah, it's a literal loss of agency, a literal loss of control.
Yeah, which is
kind of good.
Yeah, which is really nicely done, and it's very beautifully done mechanically, because it has that feeling as well. Because then later in the game, that's when things are starting to go wrong. Because and especially in that game, because you tell people at the beginning, you're like, your character's not going to survive. The end of this game is that they're going to be dead, and this is a story of us talking about that journey. So it's not like it's a surprise for any characters. You say it right at the beginning, because I think it would be unfair to jump that on a player if they were like, but if they know from the beginning this is what we're doing, then I think that slow loss of agency leads into the storytelling. But
so
this topic is definitely morphed, doesn't it?
Well, it's definitely a good way but it's definitely a good way to do a tragedy, which is essentially what we're talking about. Because it's like just a slow
coming to a bad it's going to end badly. It's just how you get there,
which is part of the interest. So that's a really solid genre emulation there.
But that was kind of I wanted to talk about different systems and how they support different storytelling.
How about the opposite, though? Can you think of any that are a really bad choice that you just would never do?
Doctor Who.
Not necessarily that exist, or maybe even some that do exist where they've been paired up, definitely the wrong system, but things that someone said, I'm going to try doing this in this system, and you think, no, that would be a bad idea.
5e Doctor Who.
5e Doctor Who? I mean, that exists.
I'm not sure that's a good choice. But because the Cubicle 7 have a system for Doctor Who, which is,
solid.
Yeah, let's do that. That was what immediately came to mind, because when I heard that, I was like, that is. But I do often see people trying to force 5e into very many different storytelling things, and I get why.
But what would you say is about Doctor Who that 5e doesn't do well?
Well, Doctor Who isn't about. So D&D has because D&D has a lot on the combat system. There's a huge amount of rules in that. And
if you take out the fighting,
it's most of the book.
You're excising a large set of the rule set. You can. It's adequate, but you got no support for the things you want to do in Doctor Who, which is talking, running, and solving your problems non-violently.
Yeah, an awful lot of running. Yeah. So So I don't see how that system supports those kind of stories.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I think definitely I wouldn't do. I do sort of Ravenloft style horror with D&D, that's fine. But it's not really horror, that. It's kind of horror-themed action.
Spooky action.
Whereas,
spooky action. I
wouldn't do actual horror with D&D, I don't think.
That is my absolute favourite thing to do with Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, magic is not for you. Magic is horrible and is going to eat your face. But you might still be able to do stuff. I guess it's like reading a Robert E. Howard, who's the guy that wrote Conan, take on the Lovecraftian universe. So it's like, Conan meets Cthulhu almost. I have to say, it's really interesting, because I like Lovecraft's very purple prose. The racism I can definitely leave.
Yeah, edit that out.
But the purple prose I love, and it's like, there was something behind the door and I fainted. But like shog off, chin it. It just appeals to me on some sort of, there's monsters out there, they're very scary and terrifying. We should do something about them. I'm like, ooh, yes. So
But what would you definitely not genre mash?
Definitely not. I mean,
because sometimes in some systems it does feel almost like a genre mash. Like, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do any kind of high heroic action stuff with basic role playing, the Cthulhu system, because it just doesn't really lean towards that at all.
There's a
it just
definite bias to failure there. Well, I can tell you from experience that trying to do horror with Savage Worlds, you're onto a bit of a hiding for nothing. Spooky action, it nails. I love it. But like horror.
Well, Savage Worlds is a bit like D&D tone-wise, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a bias. Basically, there's games where there's a bias to failure, and there's games where there's a bias to success. Like the Powered by the Apocalypse stuff, if you do the math, there's a bias to failure, and like there's an encouragement to fail at your rolls because that's usually part of the XP system. Yeah, fair enough. I don't know. You will love this. Barbie using GURPS.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That wasn't the system that came to mind for me. That wasn't. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and like the Siege Jackson games are like, actually, you know what? We've had enough Munchkin. We're going to bring out Barbie for GURPS, and like that could be. That could be a thing. Like they're very good at researching.
If you want to prove me wrong and do an actual...
I mean, you have stats for every single aspect of Barbie you can think of. Barbie ski goggles, you have stats for them.
There'll be plenty of equipment, yeah. If you want to prove me wrong and do a Barbie GURPS actual play, I'll watch it. But...
I mean, I was asserting that I don't think Barbie GURPS would be a good fit.
I was talking to anyone listening that would be outraged at your assertion that GURPS wouldn't be good for Barbie. I say to them, please do a Barbie GURPS actual play and let me prove us wrong. Let us see it, because I would watch that.
I think, Jessica, you've actually found an actual play that I would actually sit down and watch with every sign of enjoyment.
Amazing. So there you go. So if you're listening, you're like, no, GURPS and Barbie absolutely would be the
Someone
thing.
has to do this now. Okay.
We need to see it. Like, prove us wrong. Prove us wrong. We would be delighted.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, genre we haven't mentioned yet. Investigation.
Well, Cthulhu, I think, is great for investigation because... You know, that's a lot of what it does, because that's a lot of the game.
There's Gumshoe, which Pelgrane have designed specifically for it.
Yeah, Gumshoe is better, because the problem with, like, most dice rolling systems and investigation are you constantly have to remember, do not gate clues behind the dice roll.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Gate the context behind the dice roll by all means, but don't hide the clue.
Whereas Gumshoe gives you the clues.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and that is its genius.
That's a really good piece of advice, actually, for anything. Especially,
not original to me, I assure you.
Well, yeah, I know, but I don't think. Peter came up with this concept all by themselves. But like, I meant
what, the Gumshoe system?
Written by Peter Coffey. No. But yeah, and that's good advice generally. Is don't make if you definitely want your player to have a thing, don't make them roll for it and risk them not getting it.
And like things like the rule of 3 and so forth, make sure there's at least 3 clues or everything, which seems like a lot of effort.
That's the door rule as well, of course. Sorry. Don't stick things behind a locked door if you need your players to get through it, because if your players can't get through it, you've just bottlenecked your game.
Yeah. Well, occasionally players will bottleneck themselves. You like say, "Oh, there's a door there, don't go through it." And there is at least one person of my acquaintance, knowledge. I sort of know him. It's online. Leave me be. And they'll be like, "Oh, I shouldn't go through that." Okay.
Yeah, you just told them not to.
I couldn't go through the door. That would be rude.
Yes. You just told me not to go through the door.
Yeah. And that has led to apparently many games being stymied as a result.
Why do you speak in riddles, Sir Peter?
I would do that. I'd be like, not going to have people... Like, if they don't want to go through the door, they're going to lock the door, right? And they're just, like, not... I mean, they might say, oh, don't go through that. But, anyway. Unlikely, to be fair. I would draw attention to the place where I'm keeping secrets.
Exactly.
Do you think a good conclusion to draw from this is there isn't really such thing as a genuine, decent, universal system?
I would generally, yes, I would. I don't think there's a one size fits all for things, because there's always if, buts and maybes. There'll be some systems that are more flexible than others that suit more things than others.
So can hit a broader range of things than
others.
I
don't think one will ever be everything. Also because of personal taste, because different people like different things.
Of course.
You can have adequate systems for everything. But finding good does require...
I mean, you can. Yeah. You can do anything in D&D 5e you want.
Yeah, you can...
I mean, I'm not... You know, I mean, you can dress... you can dress a dog up in any costume you want, and, you can dress D&D up in any costume you want. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always a good idea, but you can do it.
Are you saying that we shouldn't dress dogs up in costumes? Because
no.
I'm The internet says you're wrong, Russ.
Can the image...
Peter, I challenge you to come here and dress my dogs up in costume.
I would happily do that.
I will watch with great
I'll happily
amusement
do that.
and hilarity, and probably film it for posterity.
Yeah.
And make an awful lot of money when it goes viral.
Should I send Daryl a picture of Django in a costume for this podcast episode picture?
Yeah.
Sad Django dressed like an elf. Or in an Easter bonnet.
It's like, can you put clothes on my dogs faster than they can eat said
that's
clothes?
the difference.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Russ. Stop moving the goalposts,
Yeah.
man.
The original one was, can you get the dog dressed? And I was like, I can.
Yeah, but things like the Powered by the Apocalypse concepts, Forged in the Dark.
Yeah, very flexible.
I'm going to say no to Forged in the Dark. Forged in the Dark is a very good tool set, but it's I wouldn't describe it as universal. I think that's probably actually a strength. I think the reason why it's put in with Powered by the Apocalypse is because you use it to tell really good story games and emulate genres, which it does do exceedingly well. So, but again, it's that emotional experience you're after. So, you try to tell a story, you want to keep to a narrow set of tropes, and you want to find out how you get to where you go in the story, then Powered by the Apocalypse does a good job. I mean, for me, I'm more about the I don't want the destination to be the thing. I'm like, I want to find out what's happening, what's going to happen next. So that's why I prefer more traditional stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know how your story ends. It's probably a good idea in many cases, but I don't like it.
Okay,
Fair enough.
all right. Okay, so another question then. So, the proliferation of systems. So, at one end of the scale, you could have every single game has its own unique bespoke system, perfectly tailored to it.
Yeah.
That's one end of a hypothetical scale. Obviously, that doesn't exist. Of a hypothetical scale. At the other end of this hypothetical scale, you have got. There's only one role-playing game system in the world, and every single thing uses that role-playing game system.
Calm down, Hasbro.
Right at the other end of the scale.
I mean, we are near a coast, but you're not a wizard, Russ. I mean, you have to remember that.
I mean, do you think that the tendency of systems people to try and use existing systems is a positive or a negative thing generally? Or would I mean, that's not a phrase.
Let me rephrase this, right? Would you rather have a tool for every single possible thing you could do, or a hammer? Or would you like somewhere in between?
I want something in between. I want a toolbox with lots of different tools for different things I'm doing. I want a hammer in the toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely.
I play D&D, that's
pretty
great.
Useful.
But sometimes but a hammer is not a screwdriver.
True.
And,
screwdriver is not a hammer.
And I know you can use a Swiss Army knife for many things, but sometimes...
And you can whack a nail in with a screwdriver.
Yeah, if you really need to.
But it's not really suited to it.
Gosh, it makes life so much easier and quicker. Yeah, so to answer your question, Russ, I want something more in the middle, like... I don't want I want there are some systems that will work with lots of things, and that's really great sometimes because I know a lot of people enjoy certain systems and don't want to learn a new system. Sometimes they're like, let's just play something we know this week. Fair enough, totally get that. But then equally, I don't want the other extreme end of the scale where there's no innovation or diversity and we're all just playing this one game, because that's like saying I really like Star Wars films. All films brought out should only be Star Wars films, and it's like, no, there should be lots of films, and there'll be loads of films that come out that aren't for you, that you won't enjoy, that you won't watch, but other people will.
But their existence richens the movie
some
going.
Some people want to watch Saltburn.
Landscape,
some people want to watch Saltburn. Some people want to watch Encanto. And they can both exist.
Also, the things that you do like probably do still get stuff from those things.
Yeah.
Like D&D has certainly borrowed stuff from other systems over the years, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So those things do.
I borrow stuff from other systems all the time, like clocks, countdown mechanics. I'm like, I'll have those. They're useful to me while I'm there with my hammer. But it's like to extend the tools metaphor. It's like I've extended my toolbox, but there are tools which are not suitable for me to use because they are very specific. And I don't have the skills to use them. So things like safety tools, I add into my toolbox. I mean, fortunately, they're called tools already, so that helps. But there's like systems out there which are there's like I've got a how to make a city game in my thing, and that's not even a game itself in many ways. It's sort of like a tool to help me make more game if that makes sense.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just like, just saying, oh, well, this particular thing, this will always be everything I need. It's like, well, sure, enjoy your hammer, have fun. It's got a back end, you can get screws out, and you can hold screws in to do stuff with it. There, sorry. I'll cease my rant.
I'm just wondering what a world would be like, though, if every single game did have its own bespoke system, lovingly crafted specially for it, and play-tested and fine-tuned to be absolutely perfect for that exact type of story they're trying to tell.
I'd hate it.
Do you think?
Yeah, because, like, that means that it comes with a setting that's put on top, and I would have to be required to know lore and do it. So I'd either have to make my own role-playing game system.
Well, maybe not a setting, a genre, maybe, not a setting specifically.
Oh, well, I mean...
Like Mothership, for example, isn't a setting specifically, it's a genre, isn't it?
Okay, yeah.
So you can do aliens with it, is one setting, or you could do a different sort of space horror thing. But
I do need my creative freedom, because, one, I find it uninteresting to learn other people's lore. Sometimes it's really good, often not, for me, personally.
I don't think that's the good way to learn the lore, though. That's the thing. I don't think learning a lore via an RPG is fun for me personally. No. Playing an RPG in a universe that I already know the lore from because it's lore that I was into already, like it's a film series I like or something. But then I don't have to learn the lore because I know it because I'm a fan of that lore.
You've learned
anyway.
it through listening to stories, and that's very much a good way for me.
Which is a very different medium to reading an RPG.
Like if I read Dragonlance, I've read so much Dragonlance. If you said let's play a Dragonlance game, I'd be like, yeah, sweet. But if you say, here is a book about, I don't know, Sigil or whatever, read this before you can play the game, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'll get back to you. And away.
But that said, I haven't read Dragonlance books, but Russ ran Dragonlance campaign that I played in, and I really enjoyed learning about the lore of Dragonlance by playing that game. You specifically said to us...
The game.
No, not running them, but playing it, as a player.
Yeah. But I'm looking at it from a GM hat.
Oh, yeah.
Russ knows the lore really well, and that's very obvious, and you really enjoyed it because Russ knows the lore.
Dragonlance, I've probably forgotten a lot of what
but I wouldn't know.
I think I can say that you've forgotten more than Jess ever knew about this.
Well, probably,
Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. Sorry.
No, it's not rude. I don't know about Dragonlance. I haven't read them. It's not.
But you've learned about it, and now you're more interested in it, and you'd be like, if someone then showed you a Dragonlance novel, you'd be like, oh, I could maybe read that and have some idea. Like, you wouldn't understand all of it, but it's like, gives you conceptual hooks to hang off.
Anyway, I feel we may have exhausted the topic a little, as we are wandering into different areas.
We've gone a bit over time too, so we should think about winding this show up.
But think about your rule set that you're using with the stories you're wanting to tell.
Yeah.
Is that the message of the week? I don't know.
Well, I'd say it's like you will learn something from every game you play, whether you play it or you're running it, sometimes both. Don't forget to play games as well, because seeing what things are like on the other side of the table is very useful. And as you go round, you'll see examples of other people doing stuff, grab those and put them into your game running practice, and you will become a better GM.
Yeah. Do you know that the more games I play, though, the more I start to feel that a lot of games are the same. And like the differences in the mechanics aren't really that consequential to the actual game.
Yeah.
And those are situations where literally they could just switch systems and you wouldn't notice. You would still have the same experience pretty much.
Well, if they did that whole black box thing, that could be an interesting experiment to do.
Yeah. Well, So, try it and say, did you have the same experience? Yeah.
Well, that's something else you can do, listeners, if you want to... if you're enraged by our silliness, then you can certainly do that experiment. And actually, we would be genuinely interested to hear.
Definitely. You could do it with rules-light games, I think.
Maybe.
It'd be a bit harder to do with rules-heavy games, because there's be a lot more work to do. But with rules-light games, you could do a few one-shots, all with different systems, but the players don't know what's going on, but you're playing the same genre, so you're trying to emulate the same experience. Same type, and then you said, did it feel to you like you were playing the same game 4 times in a row, or did you feel like you were playing 4 different games?
I think actually that is a really good point, in that rules light and genre emulators and storytelling games, rules light doesn't really have that much of a meaning in some respects. I mean, it's possible for something to have very few rules. But
that's what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, so
I like cognitive load on the rules.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess you could try running, say, Honey Heist, and then switch it over to Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
But that would be problematic because for like a proper PBTA game has defined I can't remember
moves?
his proper name.
Playbooks?
Yeah, you got the moves, you've got the playbook. And that is something you need to have. So that requires player choice. Yeah. Vexing. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. All right then, let's get out of here.
Yeah. But good talk. It's been really good.
I hope I have the best weekend, and everyone else has great weekends, but they're not quite as good as my weekend.
Okay.
That's what I hope. That's what I hope for the world this weekend.
Okay, I hope everyone has a nice weekend. I hope mine's okay. Yeah, anyway.
I'm just going to go.
It should be quite good, actually. All right.
Hey, I'll catch you later. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Apparently I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morrus's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morrus.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morrus. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow @Morrus on the Twitter. Send your emails to morruspodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.
So the resolution didn't involve. I'm sorry.
Russ is being accosted by a dog.
A
dog has just jumped up and is trying to lick his face.
While Russ extricates himself from his canine companion, it's probably just that there's not going to be a Rebel Moon